Welcome to this video. I wanted to make it so that we are at least a little bit comfortable and confident in Excel. So Excel is not pervasive. We don't need it for our exams or anything for this class, but it is very helpful for some of our homeworks. And then for a lot of the cases that we end up doing, we have to have at least some familiarity with Excel. Now on your cases, you need to have a lot more familiarity with Excel, but for your homeworks, it's going to be, just being able to write out basic formulas, being able to navigate a little bit. And sometimes it's just a little bit tricky that you don't know exactly the right formula that you need based on what your homework is asking you for. So this is really just meant to give us, get our feet wet in Excel, make sure that we're comfortable with like moving stuff around, how to create a formula. And we're going to do so in the context of some practice questions that are, ones that are styled after ones that we are likely to see for our homework. So that's what we've got here. So let's go ahead and get into this first one. We've got that Cheez-Its company currently has current assets of 5,200, net fixed assets are given, current liabilities are given, long-term debt is given. It says what is the value of shareholders' equity and how much is net working capital. So this is really just basic accounting type stuff, and then us being able to find what net working capital is, knowing that that's current assets minus current liabilities. So when we take a look at this, we are going to, again, just getting our feet wet with Excel. When we're kind of navigating through, I'm just using my arrow keys, up, down, left, right. And then when it says current assets here, we're going to start to fill out this balance sheet. When we're going to cell reference, that means that this value for current assets, we already have somewhere else. So we're going to want to reference that cell. So we just do equals to make a formula. And then I'm just going to use my arrow key, and I want that cell to be equal to the same thing as B6. So I'm going to want that to be 5,200, and I just hit equals, and there you go. We're going to have that as 5,200. Then net fixed assets, same exact thing. We have that as net fixed assets here. And then for total current assets, all of these things we're going to want to make formulas for. So our total current assets, or just total assets, excuse me, is going to be equal to, this is how we create a formula, is with the equal sign. We're going to say this plus this. Perfect. All right, owner's equity we'll come back to, but current liabilities, we're doing the same kind of thing. We're going to go over here. We're going to say current liabilities is that cell B8. When we say B8, that's B8 here. That's where it's cell referencing. Long-term debt also given to us. So there we go. Boom. All right. So then total liabilities and equity. We know that total liabilities and equity should equal assets. And this is where accounting comes into play. So we just know that those two things should be equal. So we're good to go there. And then now owner's equity. Really that missing blank, but it should be our total liabilities and equity minus our long-term debt minus our current liabilities. So we could have that as a formula. Sometimes this is a little bit tricky though. And this is, you just gotta kind of do it a couple times and like guess a little bit. Try to understand what kind of form it wants you to have this in, but you could also do something like equals this minus the sum of these two. Okay, and then that would give us the exact same answer. So if that's the way that you have to do it, then so be it, but there you go. That's how you do it. Formula is you're doing the equal sign to start, and then you're just trying to reference a lot of the cells. That's something that we have to know this semester for sure. And then now net working capital is just going to be assets minus our current liabilities. So again, we're cell referencing to make sure that we're comfortable there. All right. Then next one here, we've got Nemo, we've got sales, and then now we're just kind of working down our income statement. So same kind of idea here. We've got all of this information that's given to us. I'm not going to read out the question. You can read over it on your own if you'd like to, but the key information is given to us. And then we've got to take that and then turn it into this income statement. So sales, sales are given. We're going to say equals that. Now costs, those are also given. Say equals that. Depreciation expense, that's also given. And then EBIT, you can say equals. And then we're just going to work down our income statement. So we got equals our sales minus costs minus our depreciation expense. All right. And then interest expense also given. Okay. And now EBT is going to be earnings before taxes. So EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes. So it's before we've subtracted off interest and taxes. So EBT should just be earnings before taxes. So it's going to be equals EBIT minus our interest expense. And then taxes, we could say, is equal to whatever that EBT is times our tax rate that we're cell referencing up here. And then net income is just our EBT minus our taxes. All right, which means now our addition to retained earnings is just going to be, so the key idea here is that net income can go one of two places. Net income can either go toward paying out dividends, which it tells us what our cash dividend is, or it can go toward retained earnings. So added to retained earnings. So here we can take our net income and the amount that we're going to subtract off the amount that was paid out as dividends. So then that's the amount that was added to retained earnings. So we should be good to go. Again, we're just using formulas and cell references everywhere. We're not actually typing out any numbers. That's the one kind of key to keep in mind. Okay, so here we've got another one. We've got sales, and then we're working all the way down to figure out what our earnings per share and our dividends per share are. But this one, very, very similar. We're going to start with our sales, and we're going to reference our costs. We're going to reference our depreciation expense. And this is another time when I'll just be perfectly honest. Sometimes the homework is going to want these to be negative for some whatever reason. So if that's the case, then just try it once. If it's wrong, then try to make it negative. So you just say equals negative of what that cost section would be, and then it would make it negative for you. And then here you would add. So here this is inconsistent formula. Okay, whatever. So here we're just saying that that equals the costs there. And then now EBIT would be equal to the sales minus the costs minus the depreciation expense. Interest expense is just given. So again, we're going to do equals this B9. Then EBT, earnings before taxes, is going to be equal to that EBIT minus our interest. Taxes, same kind of idea. We're taking our EBT and multiplying it by our tax rate that's given. So again, we're just using cell references everywhere. We're not actually typing out any of these numbers. So equals the EBT minus our taxes that we just solved for. And then now we've got earnings per share. Earnings per share is just net income per share. So maybe in an accounting class or something, we had to do net income divided by average shares or something. But here we're just going to be given these shares outstanding. So we just have to do equals our net income divided by those shares outstanding that are given. And then that is our earnings per share. And then dividends per share. This one's easy. We go equals, we're given cash dividends. We're just going to divide that by, so just divided by, that's cell reference, divided by. And then here is where we're going to then divide by our shares outstanding. Good to go there. All right. Moving right along. Here, kind of the same sort of idea. Says ultimately, what is the operating cash flow? And this is again one where there's actually a couple different ways that we could solve for this, but we're going to try it one way, and then I'll tell you kind of the other way that we could solve for it as well. But here we're starting with sales. We're just going to fill out our income statement here. Here we're also going to have our costs. We're also going to have our depreciation expense. We're going to have our EBIT. I'm just going faster through this because we've had to do this on the last couple of questions. And then interest expense, we're also just referencing above. EBT is going to be the EBIT minus our interest. Taxes, same sort of idea. Again, we're getting into the habit of this now. And if you need to, keep watching this video, rewind it a couple times, rewind it, go back to the beginning or something, then feel free to do so. Here, net income, we would take EBT minus our taxes. And then operating cash flows. Okay, operating cash flows, easiest way to think about this is it's going to be our EBIT, okay, minus our taxes plus our depreciation expense. Okay, EBIT minus taxes plus depreciation expense, that would be our operating cash flows. Okay, another way to think about that is it's going to be our net income, and we're going to add back our interest expense, because that's financing, and depreciation expense because that's a non-cash expense. So we should get it the exact same way, the exact same, but I think that this is the better formula, taking EBIT, subtracting off taxes, and then adding back depreciation expense. But this is also going to tell us the exact same answer where we start with net income, since that's what it had us get down to. So I don't really see another reason that we would have had to get all the way down to net income. But that's just another way to think about doing that one. And then now we move on. Okay, and it says net capital spending. Okay, net capital spending. Well, if we've got net capital spending, that's just our change in net fixed assets plus depreciation expense. So change in net fixed assets plus depreciation expense. So it's going to be equals net fixed assets new minus net fixed assets old. And then we add back, or we add depreciation expense. And that is our net capital spending. So again, change in net fixed assets plus depreciation expense. Change in net fixed assets plus depreciation expense. Okay, that one's not too bad. And then here, last but not least, we are given this information. Again, all this orange is what's going to be kind of cells that we are going to reference. So our ending net working capital, ending being the end of 2021 versus the beginning, is going to be what the end of 2020 was. So the end of 2020 is actually the beginning of 2021. So ending net working capital is going to be our current assets minus our current liabilities. So that's for 2021. And then our beginning is going to be the same thing, but current assets minus current liabilities from the previous year. That now our additions to working capital, we're going to say ending minus beginning, and that's going to be negative 80. So sometimes that could be negative. So there you go. You're just doing ending. What was that additions to? What was that change in net working capital? Yeah, the answer is negative because the endings, it ended up being lower than what it was at the beginning. So again, this entire video is just meant to give us a little bit of practice with Excel. Every single week, I am hopefully going to have kind of similarly tailored videos that are just helpful for us to understand what's going on with Excel. Because it is, sometimes a bear. I went through consulting, and I remember at the very beginning of my career in consulting, I was the worst at Excel. And now I wouldn't say that I'm good. Like, I'm not investment banker who has been an investment banker for multiple years kind of good, but I can definitely, get by. I don't really have a PC anymore, so it's not like I'm, living the hotkey central life, but can definitely get by. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, chris@gpafactory.com. We'd be more than happy to help. But hopefully this video was helpful for you to get some practice with Excel and understand what's going on, because I know that it can be challenging for most students to kind of navigate through Excel. So hopefully that helps, and I will see you later.